keeping you connected in Northeast Wisconsin. You are watching NBC 26 News at 10.
Right now at 10, a look at why one local school district is having to make staffing cuts.
A big spring storm producing tornadoes across parts of Texas this evening will give us the chance for thunderstorms, locally heavy rain, and some snow. I'll have your forecast.
The latest from Ukraine as the war continues in that country.
Good evening and thanks for being with us tonight. Staff cuts and a potential building closure. That's what the Shawano School District is considering with a $2 million budget shortfall moving into next year.
Tonight, dozens of parents and staff members took to the district's board meeting to express their concerns. According to the school board president, there are teachers who will receive notices of contract non-renewal this week. Districts are required by state law to notify staff no later than April 30th.
Declining numbers and no revenue increase, that leads to a challenging situation. So we have right at $2 million budget deficit for the next year.
The school board president says no decision has been made yet to close a district building due to the budget shortfall, but it is part of the conversation. The district says student population projections are expected to drop over the next 3 to 5 years.
I do not know why teacher cuts happen today, before the April 1st deadline for retirements. I do not understand why you would cut people before you know who is retiring.
Parents and staff members brought up the idea of creating an operating referendum in an effort to gain more money for the school district. The school board president says a lack of state funding played a part in that $2 million budget deficit.
If you have kids, you likely know how much it can cost to send them to childcare. You may also have heard about the president's plan to cap those costs for families.
It can be a really complicated issue. Dan Grossman takes a deeper dive into how childcare became so expensive and the solutions some states have found to try to reduce the problem at least a bit.
Can you hear me?
We would have loved to have spoken with Alicia Anion in person.
Okay, good. How are you doing?
For 5 years, she, her husband, and 2 kids, Fletcher and Kyler, both 5, have lived in rural Colorado. But when we reached out to her for this story, we discovered that had changed because of childcare.
Not only is it horribly expensive, but there was no availability at all. So we had to figure out a different route because we wanted our kids to, have another year of preschool somewhere.
Earlier this year, Alicia and her family moved to Utah. The childcare was more affordable and there was more availability for Fletcher and Kyler, who both have developmental delays. To some, moving states because of childcare might seem like a lot, but for many, it's the only option.
A lot of local families for many years now have actually been pushed out of the community. They come here to work and they haven't been able to find childcare.
Liz Castaldo is the executive director of Early Childhood Partners, a nonprofit that works to solve this very issue. For years, childcare has gotten more expensive, and it's not because providers are doing particularly well themselves. In 2019, the median wage for childcare workers was $24,230, which is less than half of what it is for kindergarten teachers, as 40% find themselves on some sort of public assistance. You'd think with wages that low, daycare owners would be rolling in it, but with the rising price of rent, electricity, supplies, and other costs, the average daycare turns a profit of only $37,000 each year.
We can't pay teachers enough because families can't pay anymore to make that happen. And so to retain people in the field, we need to be competitive at least with a livable wage, which we're not even close to that. And then where does that go? That goes on to tuition, which is really the only source of income.
Last month, Liz worked with local officials to expand a program that would knock down some of those costs in her county as they help pay for rent and other expenses. It's one of the more recent programs in a long list of local initiatives to make childcare more affordable over the past decade. In 2013, New York Mayor Bill de Blasio helped implement free universal pre-K for 4-year-olds across the city. Around the same time, Seattle voters funded a citywide preschool pilot through a property tax levy. And in Maryland, Montgomery County passed a law that expanded childcare and early education services.
Well, the biggest issue is that I wasn't able to go to work full time.
The strides are helpful, but until federal action, like President Biden's proposed cap on costs, is taken, parents like Alicia worry their problems will only continue.
It's been tough meeting new people, getting established, figuring out your daily routines.
I'm Dan Grossman.
It is complicated and so stressful to think about it. Dan, thank you. Well, it requires some math, but Biden's plan would cap childcare costs at 7% of a household's income for families that make up to 150% of their state's median income. Families that make less than 75% of that income would pay nothing. The bill has stalled as it's passed the House, but not the Senate.
Let's turn to our weather here. We dodged a few rainstorms out there today.
Let's get to Chief Meteorologist Cameron Moreland. And Cam, is this gloomy weather going to stick around?
It is, Nina. In fact, it's going to intensify tomorrow. Here's a look at the time lapse from Green Bay earlier today, where we had clouds and a few showers. South of Green Bay, there was actually a lot of sunshine during the afternoon. Those showers from earlier today have now lifted to the north. For the rest of tonight, expect cloudy skies with maybe a shower towards daybreak, and then a much better chance for showers eventually turning into a soaking rain as we head through the late afternoon and evening. We can expect gusty winds tomorrow with temperatures in the upper 30s to lower 40s. Back to you.
To the latest on Ukraine now. We need to warn you, some of the images and subject matter in this next story are extremely graphic and may not be suitable for some viewers. The White House is warning the U.S. citizens that Russia is plotting to unleash a crippling cyber attack on the United States.
And the Pentagon says they're seeing clear evidence that Russian forces are committing war crimes in their invasion of Ukraine. Here's Cole Higgins tonight.
Protesters run for their lives as Russian forces open fire on them in the once peaceful streets of the now Russian-occupied Ukrainian city of Kherson. Blood spills on the street as people try to help a man struck by the gunfire. In the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv, flames and smoke rise from the rubble of what was once a bustling shopping mall. A lethal Russian airstrike has now decimated it, leaving behind a shell of a building, mangled vehicles, and blowing out the windows of nearby buildings. In the city of Mariupol, a Ukrainian officer there says bombs are falling every 10 minutes. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the city is being reduced to ashes.
Fighting around Mariupol is fierce, but remains at this point isolated. It remains a high priority for Russia because it would provide President Putin with a land bridge to Crimea and cut off Ukrainian forces there.
President Biden is now warning of evolving intelligence that Russia could conduct malicious cyber activity against the United States.
The magnitude of Russia's cyber capacity is fairly consequential, and it's coming. The federal government is doing its part to get ready.
There's still much more we need to do to have the confidence that we've locked our digital doors, particularly for the critical services Americans rely on.
I'm Cole Higgins reporting.
As the Ukrainian invasion continues, one man is back in northeast Wisconsin following a volunteer trip to Poland. Daniel Dillon, who is from the small town of Marion, just an hour from Green Bay, traveled abroad to volunteer with World Market Kitchen, a nonprofit providing meals to Ukrainian refugees.
We were working in the kitchen, and most of what I did was help prepare foods. We served apples, cut, peeled, cored, chopped apples like you would not believe.
With all hands on deck, he also served food, allowing him to interact with people crossing into the Polish border town. For Dillon, being able to play this small role in a large humanitarian crisis is something he says he'll never forget.
Still ahead here for us, a look back at the Badgers last season after ending with that loss to Iowa State yesterday.
After sunshine and highs close to 60 to kick off spring yesterday, much cooler weather moved in from the north today, and that's something that we need to get used to. I'll have your 7-day forecast coming up next.